Welcome back to Tanya in 5. Today, we recap letter 27 of book 4 of Tanya, Iggeret HaKodesh. This letter is written to a group of Chassidim, written to the community of Chassidim, comforting them on the loss of their great teacher, Rabbi MENACHEM Mendel of Vitebsk. This Rabbi MENACHEM Mendel of Vitebsk is in some ways even the Rebbe of the Alter Rebbe, the author of Tanya, and he is the one who led the group of Chassidim who emigrated to the land of Israel, about whom we have been learning that the Alter Rebbe was supporting through his charitable foundation. So in this letter, he addresses the community and comforts them on the loss of Rabbi MENACHEM Mendel of Vitebsk after his passing. Now this letter has been quoted many times by our Rebbe, and that our Rebbe elaborated on this letter and explained it in great detail and great length. And today, in a post-Gimel Tammuz era, in the era that's after the Rebbe's physical departure, the Rebbe's teachings on this letter, and this letter becomes very, very pertinent and important, as we shall see. So here's the content of the letter. He tells them as follows. When we think of death, we have to think of death from what? Death implies the end of something, or the end of some life. Well, what was life? If life is simply the pleasures of the body, then when the body stops, so does life stop. But for the tzaddik, whose life, even while he is in the body, is nothing to do with his body. Yes, technically he's living in his body, but it's not his life. His life is his service of God, his faith in God, his love of God, his fear of God. His life, even when in the body, was wholly spiritual, completely spiritual. And thus, when his body stops, his spiritual life does not. So the life he led even while he was in the body continues even when the body stops. And thus, those who were connected to the tzaddik, who have this deep love for the tzaddik, and those who continue to connect to the tzaddik after his passing, continue to draw life, service of God, true life, and physical blessing from the tzaddik, who continues to bestow that blessing to those who live in the life that he taught, and through them he continues to live on. His true life, which is his spiritual life. The Alter Rebbe adds, it's not just that the life he led during his time on earth continues, because his life on earth was spiritual, and the spiritual continues, but actually his presence in this physical world is even more post-death than it was before. Quoting the Zohar, Yatim b'chayehi, after the physical life of the tzaddik ends, his life in this world continues even stronger. How's that? Because while the tzaddik is living in the body, so whatever energy and life and teachings and guidance and blessing he provides to his followers, that all comes through the limitations of a body. But now that the tzaddik is no longer limited by the body, the life he bestows to those who are connected to him continue in even greater measure beyond the limitations that the body imposed upon him while he was still here. And thus, says the Alter Rebbe to his followers, know that Rabbi MENACHEM Mendel of Vitebsk, your Rebbe, continues to live on in you as you continue to live the life that he taught you to live. The faith in God, the love of God, the fear of God, and the Torah and the service of God that he lived, and through you continues to live, and through that you continue to draw blessing from him. The takeaway from all of this, two things perhaps. First of all, for us in a post-Gimel Tammuz era, in the era post our Rebbe's passing, it's important for us to know that through us continuing to connect to the Rebbe, and by us continuing to lead our lives based on the teachings and the Torah and the shlichut, the mission that the Rebbe taught in his unique style of joy and love of a fellow Jew, through us, the Rebbe continues to live. The life he led while he was here was about dedication to his fellow Jew and dedication to Torah in his unique style. And as we continue to live that life, he lives on in us too. Or we might even say, in the fact that he still lives through us, that's how we get the strength to continue his vision and continue his life work. That's number one. Perhaps we might add another element, which is we should look at ourselves and ask ourselves, is our life the kind of life that will live on after our body stops? What percentage of our life is dedicated to the maintenance of our body and the bodily pleasures that we pursue? Because those are going to end when our body ends. And what percentage of our life is dedicated to the spiritual, to educating our children, sharing with our neighbors and friends and fellow Jews, learning, serving God with love and fear and faith? What percentage of our life is the spiritual that will indeed continue to live on, even after the body stops? Looking forward to seeing you when we conclude Letter 28.